Headlines this hour. ANC Secretary-General Fikile Mbalula says party members must focus on restoring the movement and not on leadership squabbles. KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi says the police are working closely with the Revenue Service to provide protection for people conducting investigations into tax evasion. And law enforcement authorities say the Sekhukhune district in Limpopo is a major contributor to the country's drug manufacturing and trafficking activities. Good afternoon at 12 midday and welcome to the week ahead. We are live with you from our SABC News Channel studio here in Johannesburg. You can give us a call in the next 2 hours to let your voice be heard on our conversations and our discussions. Our number is 011 714 0680, 0681 or 0682. I'm Gustav Freiling. Thank you so much for spending your Sunday afternoon with us. Right, ANC members must focus on restoring the movement and not on leadership squabbles. This is according to the party's Secretary-General Fikile Mbalula. He held a press briefing yesterday to address the programme of the 7th administration as laid out during the President's opening of Parliament address.
There will be tough conversations ahead for the ANC.
We are in a big problem. Big challenge, 40%. There are still people who are entertaining who must be the leader of the ANC as a primary program of action of the ANC. And they think that is revolutionary because they live for that. We can't be a party like that. We change or we ship out. We are now with one foot in and the other one out.
Even where the party is in opposition, it can't be business as usual, Mbalula says. In the Western Cape, the party has been in opposition for at least 10 years. The aim is to significantly improve election results all over the country.
We are obsessed who becomes the leader. It can't be like that. This organization will die. Here in the Western Cape, we are having a meeting now. Western Cape. We are not giving DA the run for their money. It's business as usual. Cannot be. Cannot be.
Mbalula had harsh words for the new opposition in Parliament. Through its MK parliamentary leader, Dr. John Hlophe, the party stated that during his opening of Parliament address, President Cyril Ramaphosa had not offered South Africans anything meaningful.
Zuma decided to break the ANC and divide it, and he's not going to stop about it. He decided to break us and reduce us below 40%, and he doesn't have a program of action of what he's going to do with that 40% except sending a questionable judge to Parliament. Very questionable character. Send him. Just to spit on the face of South Africa, he brings Hlophe and even send him to the JSC, just to show us that he's got no respect for constitutionalism.
Mbalula also fielded questions on members of the tripartite alliance not being happy about the ANC forming a government of national unity post the May 29 elections. Zelene Merrington, SABC News, Parliament.
Now, as interest continues on whether the members of the newly formed government of national unity will be able to deliver and complete the term together, some political pundits say the role of the opposition parties are now more crucial than ever to hold the executive accountable. This comes as many South Africans and political parties raised concern about the GNU, arguing that it is just a waste of time. Following the opening of Parliament address on Thursday, the Progressive Caucus has argued that the newly formed GNU will not stand the test of time because its members differ politically.
Parliament has officially opened, and now all eyes are on how the new government will work. The 7th administration has brought with it a collaboration of various political parties that have put their different ideologies aside. In his opening of Parliament speech on Thursday, President Ramaphosa put forward government's intention for the next 5 years. He said amongst many, under the GNU, priority will be given to eliminate poverty, growing the economy to create jobs, and building a capable, ethical and developmental state.
The Government of National Unity will pursue every action that contributes to sustainable, rapid economic growth and remove every obstacle that stands in the way of growth.
While his speech was applauded by the members of the GNU, those in opposition did not buy it. The Progressive Caucus says there's nothing new on what the president said.
He's a sophisticated liar, right? And who can lie with a very straight face. He knows no bounds when it comes to lying. The suggestion that his government has created more than 2 million jobs, while all South Africans, we know that is a lie.
We as the EFF are going to consolidate the progressive forces in this parliament and make sure that we hold this government accountable. We give this government just a year, and if it doesn't collapse within a year, it will not go beyond 2 years.
He uses the legacy kaTatu Mandela as a means of, ukusithela abantu, so that abantu bacifama all is well, whereas not all is well.
Weighing in on the matter, political analyst Professor Ntsikelelo Breakfast says the concerns of many about the current government emanates from the conduct of political parties at local level.
By and large, coalition arrangements have been unworkable and unstable, largely because of the political elite that have a tendency to rush into forming them without a conflict management mechanism. So I think that is the background to the story in terms of why some people hold the view that this government will not last.
Professor Ntsikelelo Breakfast further says, now that other things are out of the way, it is up to the GNU members to put their political differences aside and put the nation first, as they have promised.
I think the role of opposition is extremely important for purposes of separation of powers or checks and balances, because most opposition parties have joined forces with the ANC, and that has weakened the opposition, but at the same time you have other political parties that are outside the GNU, like Umkhonto weSizwe, EFF and ATM. So their role will be to hold the government of the day accountable.
Nhlanhla Khatlhane, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Now, the Government of National Unity has been urged to not only integrate previously marginalised people into the economy, but also to address the structural challenges facing small businesses in South Africa. The key issues include providing funding to tackle root problems and ensuring a reliable power supply. After more than 3 months without load shedding, the country now faces a new challenge of load reduction. It targets high-density areas to protect Eskom assets from failures and explosions.
According to Nedbank's Chief Operating Officer, Mfundo Nkutlu, the adequacy and level of support for small businesses remains a persistent challenge for the country, despite small businesses being the primary driver of job creation. Addressing the first day of the Nedbank Top Empowerment Conference in Sandton during the week, he urged the government to respond effectively to these issues.
We would hope and expect that the government program responds adequately to these challenges and helps to energize and mobilize society as a whole so that we too can respond to the calls for a national dialogue that will help us to be deliberate and intentional about solving our structural challenges.
Small and micro businesses contribute 40% towards South Africa's GDP, making them vital in growing the country's economy. However, one small business has expressed concern that current measures addressing their challenges are merely superficial solutions rather than tackling the underlying issues. CEO Mpumi Maisela of SE Holdings, a company that empowers farmers from rural areas to get access to resources, says they have secured 30 million rand in funding, but the need is much greater.
We really love to see more young people getting excited to participate in agriculture. We talk about scarce skills, we talk about opportunities for young people. I truly believe that agri-value chain creates real opportunity for most young people in South Africa, given a chance and given the necessary skills to do so. As we know, there's 20 million people in South Africa alone that go to bed hungry every day, and that's the market or the opportunity that exists to solve for food security, but also with the challenges around the climate. How do we support the already existing farmers for them to become resilient, to continue to plant and continue to feed the rest of the country? So those are the challenges that some of my farmers face, but also the gap in the industry to seeing more young people being excited and seeing agri-value chain as a real opportunity to turn around the unemployment in this country.
Meanwhile, former Deputy President of South Africa, Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka, has expressed confidence in government's ability to address the challenges outlined. She says that the transformation agenda is still a top priority, and initiatives like BEE have provided many with economic opportunities that were previously unavailable.
There was much more that was expected of BEE, as well as the empowerment even of communities. I think the BEE has not done well. There's also been a lot of resources that should have gone to empower people who really needed to be empowered, that have gone the wrong way. So the implementation of BEE has got to be reviewed and corrected, but BEE must continue to exist.
The Nedbank Top Empowerment Conference is hosted annually and acts as a catalyst for transformation. Delegates gather for 2 days to discuss solutions to the challenges faced. Nosipo Khadebe, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Wow, you're amazing.
Now, let's turn our attention to stories that made headlines in the Sunday newspapers this morning. And joining us this afternoon is Rochelle de Kock, and she is the editor-in-chief of Herald Live. Rochelle, good afternoon. It's good to speak to you again.
Yes, hi, good afternoon, good stuff. It's lovely to be on air again.
Let's start with the Sunday Times today, and a lovely headline. You can almost see in your mind's eye how this is happening, how Gwede Mantashe is telling Helen Zille, "You're not the boss." That is the headline this morning. ANC National Chair accuses the DA matriarch of trying to usurp Ramaphosa's authority over her party's ministers. What is this story about?
So basically, we've got the ANC National Chair that's warning, Federal Council Chair Helen Zille against acting like a parallel president. He's basically calling her her behavior the biggest threat to the survival of the government of national unity. So in an interview, Gwede Mantashe basically talks about how the GNU is working closely together or moving closer together, but he's just worried that he says Zille is wanting ministers to report to her and regard her as the boss, whereas they should be reporting to the president. And he says that this, he's a bit concerned that this could precipitate the collapse of the power sharing deal. But, he doesn't really give you real, I would say, concrete examples, except to say it's based on what he sees and what he reads when he logs onto social media. Mantashe also cites a interview that Helen Zille did on Newsroom Africa, where she said the president doesn't control all ministries and the ministers have relative autonomy to run their departments. But yeah, so I think that's going to be quite an interesting one to watch, over the next few weeks and months. But also Helen Zille says that, she was just basically doing a comparison with the German system that facilitates coalition governments, where she made the comment, when she made the comment on that news show. And she said it was crucial for the future of South Africa for the GNU to be kept intact, which was quite interesting to hear that. She's saying, I think people predict that there would be, negative consequences for GNU, and that the fact that the GNU might collapse, and that should be the driving force as to why it should be held together.
Now, another story here on the front page of Sunday Times concerns our local politics. In the metro municipalities, we kind of expected that those municipalities would have followed the national deal between the ANC and the DA, but it seems as though there might be a different political alignment. The story there, new round of mayoral musical chairs in Joburg.
Yeah, look, as you said, it was to be somewhat expected, but in this time we think the ANC believed to have clinched a deal with Action SA and the IFP and not necessarily the DA. And they are believed to be, have been discussing and have come to an agreement to have the ANC's Dada Morero as the new mayor of Joburg from as early as next month. And we know that Morero currently is the MMC for finance. He did have a brief stint as mayor last year. But yeah, it looks like we might see the Al-Jamar mayor kicked out pretty soon.
Okay. City Press, a different headline there. Unexpected story. Blade accused attempt to capture a SETA, that's the services SETA. The former higher education minister tried to sneak in a key appointment in the final days in this portfolio.
Yes, that's quite an interesting one. The City Press is reporting that the former Minister of Higher Education had informed the Services SETA board he had appointed Zenzele Ndlela as the CEO. And this was apparently done and signed on the 14th of June, but was only sent to the board on the 19th of June. And, we know that the chair of the Services SETA, wrote to the department as Director General and basically querying, why this was appointed, because the concern is that, the office of the CEO must correspond with the accounting authority, namely, I suppose, because a new government is being put in place, and they were quite concerned about that. And some staff saying that this move could be seen as, blatant capture of higher education, and they just worried that perhaps this could be seen as Blade's attempt to try and protect his lieutenants going forward, with him out, and, so that they can, I suppose, keep his interests at bay. Also, the article insinuates.
Yeah, quite a technical story, that one. Then we move on to Sunday World, and here we get the headlines that we don't get in the other newspapers. Mbalula attacks Panyaza over Hani T-shirt. That was a week or two ago when he announced his minority government in Gauteng. So quite a lot of things happening there behind the scenes.
Look, so we know that there was this media briefing that the Gauteng Premier addressed together with the Secretary General of the ANC, and he walked out in this T-shirt with the words, "Don't kill Chris Hani again." And this has obviously created quite a stir, and the Sunday World is reporting that the the Secretary General had confronted him over wearing the T-shirt while addressing the media conferences, because, some believe that he could be, aligning himself to some of the remnants or within the ANC and the SACP who are feeling very strongly that the ANC had sold out by getting into bed with the DA. And in fact, there's another story in Sunday World where Mbalula openly talks out about him saying that they had taken offense to SACP Secretary General Solima Baila, saying that the ANC, when they said that the ANC had sold out by, getting together with the DA. And he believes that such remarks, demonstrate what he says is ideological paralysis that the communists are suffering from with regards to the GNU. So it's quite an interesting few weeks ahead, and I think that we're still going to see more of this, this coming week and the weeks coming, ahead.
Lots of interesting stories in the Sunday World. I see there's another one that says Mswati's 2 million rand lobola for Zuma's daughter.
Yes, no, that was also quite an interesting one. I was actually looking at some of the reaction on social media this morning, and it's quite, people are quite, excited about what this could mean, and I suppose more feeling that it's a bit unbelievable that someone would, would pay 2 million rand for Lobola. So that was quite an interesting story too.
Rochelle, thank you so much. We appreciate you joining us this afternoon on The Week Ahead. And that was the editor-in-chief of Herald Live talking to us about the stories making headlines this morning. You're watching The Week Ahead on the SABC News channel, and we will be back right after this. Welcome back. Now, the ANC postponed its hearing for its suspended member, Jacob Zuma, and also refused his request to make the proceedings public. The former president and Mkhonto weSizwe party leader was supposed to appear virtually before the ANC's disciplinary committee, but could not attend. So the ANC is now charging Zuma for publicly supporting and voting for his newly formed party, MK. But for more on this, we are joined this afternoon by the political analyst, Dr. Levi Ndo. Dr. Ndo, good afternoon and welcome.
Good afternoon to you, Gustav. Good afternoon to the viewers at home. Thank you for having me.
Jacob Zuma, he was supposed to appear virtually before this disciplinary committee, but he said that he had network problems at his homestead there at Nkandla in KwaZulu-Natal. And he asked for a physical meeting, but the ANC has rejected this and has stated that the hearing will be done virtually now. So in light of all of this, do you think he will pitch for the hearing this week?
Well, I think it will depend as to whether indeed he wants to attend the DC and, of course, have the ANC disciplinary committee to get his side of the story. If indeed there are connection problems, specifically where he is in Nkandla, he can still use many other options to get to a place where there is connectivity available. But at the same time, I don't expect full cooperation on the part of former President Zuma because he is out of the ANC already, and what is actually going on now are just formalities around constitutionality and procedural aspects that the ANC has to satisfy. So whether he attends virtually or not virtually, that will not be a big issue for Jacob Zuma because already he's outside the ANC.
So let's explore that a little bit further. What would you say has contributed to the ANC taking its time then to act against Zuma? And what do you think the ANC is really hoping to achieve? It could be seen as either a waste of time or what would be termed in your field as academic reasons.
Jacob Zuma keeps insisting that he's a member of the ANC, and it could be correct by affiliation, but by actions he's outside of the ANC. Now that by affiliation and by his own words he's a member of the ANC, therefore the ANC has to follow its processes in order to constitute disciplinary proceedings against him. If the ANC does not do so, the ANC will still be perceived as a party that does not respect its own constitution and its own rules and regulations. So for the sake of ensuring that all processes have been fulfilled, the ANC, in my view, has to take this route so that it will be very much clear whether indeed Jacob Zuma is formally in or outside the ANC.
So that's the procedural side of it. The elections are basically over now. We know the outcome. Zuma is the leader of this party, which is now the official opposition in Parliament. Is there, apart from the processes, any political significance to this pursuit?
It has political significance in the sense that it provides political education. That when you join a political party, there are certain rules and regulations that you need to follow. When you join a political party and any other organization, you surrender some of your rights to that organization. You are subjected to the constitution and the discipline of that organization. So when you are seen to have contravened some of the rules or any other rule of the organization, disciplinary processes or organizational processes have to unfold. And I think that is exactly what they are doing with former President Jacob Zuma. So that if in the near future, someone does exactly what Jacob Zuma is doing, that person should be aware that that is against the rules and regulations of the party, and such person will be subjected to disciplinary proceedings of the party.
Do you think Zuma was unreasonable with the demands that he has made in the build-up now to this engagement, like wanting the hearing to be done face-to-face, but also opening it up to the public because of this clear public interest?
Well, I think depending on the reasons provided by the ANC in the first instance when they spoke about having the disciplinary hearing in person, they spoke about security issues. They also looked at the lives of the people who might be around the area where the disciplinary proceedings could also be taking place. But also at the same time, when you are called onto a disciplinary hearing, it is up to those that have arranged that DC to make all the necessary arrangements, whether it should be done indoors, whether it should be done in public, and many other factors. But at the same time, my sense is that I'm not aware of any disciplinary hearing that has been done in public, and I'm also not aware of any situation where those that are implicated should insist on having an open hearing like a disciplinary process. But at the same time, I adhere to the principle of fair hearing, and I think those are some of the issues that those that are sitting in the DC will have to sit down and consider.
Dr. Ndo, we have a caller on the line now. It is Tsepo calling from KZN. Tsepo, good afternoon. Thank you for phoning. Would you like to contribute to our discussion today?
Yes, sir, I would like to contribute. What I wanted to say is that the African National Congress must not any time more delay this matter about Comrade Jacob Zuma. Not only the African National Congress, but any other political party having someone like that, someone who has done so much to destroy the political party, they must just take the decision now and set Mr. Zuma free once and for all. And then we'll see what comes after that. We've seen a lot of things here in South Africa. We are resilient. We are strong enough to face anything like we did with the looting and we did it all other diseases. So Jacob Zuma should not be a problem to a country.
Tsepo, thank you.
Given freedom to go.
Yes. Thank you for your call and thank you for your opinion. Dr. Ndo, would you like to comment on that? Is it time to just get this over and done with?
Well, I think it could be the view of many, and if it's in the best interest of the ANC and Jacob Zuma himself, it should be done as fast as possible. My view is that Jacob Zuma has, for quite some time, acted outside the confines of the ANC, and any further delays has got a huge potential to further damage and divide the ANC, if indeed Jacob Zuma is still regarded as a member of the ANC.
Dr. Ndo, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. The political analyst, Dr. Levi Ndo, joining us here. This is The Week Ahead on the SABC News channel, and we'll be back right after this. Welcome back. KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi says the police are working closely with the South African Revenue Service to provide protection for people conducting investigations into tax evasion. Now, this after SARS advocate Coreth Nodia was shot and wounded outside the Mhlanga Hotel in what was an apparent hit.
It was here in the affluent suburb of Umhlanga, where advocate Coreth Nodia was ambushed by two men when she entered the parking garage at a local hotel. Gareth Naidu from KZN VIP Protection Services was first on the scene. The security company says Nodia had been shot 3 times in the upper body and face, and that she attempted to flee the attack by driving into the hotel's basement parking.
She was entering the hotel parking, and then I think during the course of the shooting she attempted to escape, and she drove further up into the parking for her safety. And so upon arrival of the teams, they requested emergency medical attention. Ambulances were dispatched, KZN VIP ambulance and another private ambulance service was dispatched to the scene. The patient was critical. She had sustained multiple gunshot wounds to the upper extremities.
Naidu says CCTV footage has captured the vehicle that the suspects were using.
So there was multiple spent cartridges at the entrance just before the boom gate scattered across the floor. And the scene had to be cordoned off for police to investigate further. And then the information from the cameras around the area we've received, it was a silver Toyota Corolla which the suspects got into.
Police in KwaZulu-Natal say they cannot speculate on the motive behind the attack.
We are working very close with SARS in order to provide the necessary support that they need to secure the officials. We cannot speculate as to the cause, and we cannot accuse anyone for now. Yes, we know that they're here working, and they're doing a very good job because pursuing those that are avoiding tax. There's many of them in the province. And we're going to make sure as law enforcement that we protect them and make sure those that are responsible for that attempt, they face the full might of the law.
The case is expected to be handed to the Hawks. For SABC News, I'm Jade Paulser in Durban.
Now, law enforcement authorities say the Sekhukhune district in Limpopo is a major contributor to the country's drug manufacturing and trafficking activities. This after members of the Hawks busted and dismantled the largest drug manufacturing laboratory in the country at a farm outside Groblersdal in the Sekhukhune region. 4 suspects, including 2 Mexican nationals, were arrested.
This drug manufacturing laboratory was established in the middle of a dense bush at the foot of a mountain several kilometers outside Groblersdal. Highly sophisticated drug and producing machinery. The head of the Hawks, Lieutenant General Godfrey Libya, says they received information from members of the public about the operation a few days ago. An extensive investigation by members of the Hawks resulted in the bust on Friday afternoon. Libya says preliminary investigations indicate that the drugs were being trafficked and supplied to countries abroad.
Our team have indeed arrested 4 suspects. 2 of those are South Africans and 2 are Mexicans. The one in South Africa is owning this farm at which the clandestine laboratory was established. The other one is obviously coming from Gauteng province, who was caught while delivering some of the chemicals from Gauteng. Those coming from outside South Africa, who are the Mexicans, the understanding is that in Mexico is where we also have got a problem with regard to illegal drugs. So one is just worried that we have got international individuals that are coming to operate in our country.
Libya says the laboratory is a center for clandestine manufacturing crystal meth worth over 2 billion rand.
We believe that the amount that is involved here is 2 billion rand. After proper analysis, we will be able to say precisely how much is actually involved. Part of the product that comes out of clandestine laboratories like this is for export. We know that some will obviously be consumed in the country, but there is commitment from the law enforcement agencies. And what we'll be asking is that while law enforcement agencies are dealing with the supply of these illegal drugs, we call on the public to encourage each other that we need to stop the demand of these drugs.
4 years ago, a drug manufacturing laboratory was discovered at a game lodge near Marble Hall, 28 kilometers from where the latest bust was made. Limpopo police authorities say Sekhukhune area is a hotspot for illegal drug operations.
Sekhukhune as a whole is a hotspot, and I think Groblersdal area, your Marble Hall,
your Louwfontein, we have, this place is infested with a lot of foreign nationals, and their activities are really, it's something that we are working on. 2 days ago, I think on Thursday, when this lab was also then discovered, we were busy with the operation within the Groblersdal and the Louwfontein Bubble Hall. Dannelton, we have our teams, we had our teams that were working here. We arrested 204 illegal immigrants.
The 4 suspects will appear in court in due course. Rutendo Bobori, SABC News, Groblersdal.
The family of 2 trade union leaders who were killed for allegedly blowing the whistle on VBS Mutual Bank corruption are hopeful that the people who ordered their shooting will soon be apprehended. South African Municipal Workers Union leaders from the Vembe District Municipality, Ronald Mani and Timson Mosetro, were shot and killed in what is believed to be an assassination in separate incidents in 2019. Now, at the time, the pair led various protest marches against the municipality's illegal investment in VBS. Their families believe the plea agreement affidavit of former VBS chairperson Chifiwa Matotsi lays the foundation for law enforcement to find the mastermind behind the pair's killers.
5 years after Ronald Mani was gunned down in broad daylight, his family's hope for justice has been renewed. Mani's fellow unionist, Timson Mosetro, also suffered a similar fate 6 days later. Their families believe Matozi's 263-page affidavit has some clues as to who might have ordered their shooting.
So when I analyze it, I think that affidavit will then also lead them, give them some leads that we can be closer into finding the justice as the family. I'm not on that field, but if ordinarily looking and reading through the affidavit, surely the Hawks should then now do their work thoroughly, because I think some leads are there for them to go and interrogate the case further.
3 Razuma siblings are currently on trial for Mani and Mosetro's murders. Mani's family has appealed to those who hired the trio to come forward with information.
We are attending the trial always, every time, and listening to some of the evidence that are being presented there. It is giving us hope that that could then lead us to somewhere. Our prayer every day is just to, like what Mr. Matozi has done, let it be an example maybe to some other people that are moving around with this heavy load, and they offload in a form of disclosing who are the masters that have sent them to commit this and leave us in pains without our brother.
VBS is currently undergoing a process of liquidation. Some depositors have received some of their savings on 2 separate occasions. There are, however, complaints that the liquidator has not been prioritizing that investors recover their losses. At least one chartered accountant has, however, cautioned that the process is likely to be prolonged.
There are many people probably who use the money that they got illegally from VBS to buy material items like houses, like cars. That process to recover that money takes a longer, because if there is a link between that money that the person have got from VBS and that house or that car, meaning that the liquidator can approach the court of law to recover the money through the sale of that house or through the sale of that car. And that process is not something that can take a short space of time. It will usually take longer, because you know in South Africa that the court processes are way, way longer.
The pre-trial hearing of 4 other VBS executives has been scheduled for Monday. Some shareholders hope that the accused will also plead guilty and confess their roles in the looting of VBS.
To those people who are supposed to appear, they must also tell the truth. We, as the minority shareholders, we are listening to what they're saying. And we cannot say it's the truth. We will also weigh it and look at our knowledge, what we know about, and if there is any contradiction, we will also bring a voice to say, this is not a true reflection of what exactly happened.
Former VBS CFO Philip Truter was in April released on parole after serving an effective 7-year jail term. The bank's chairperson, Chipiwa Madozi, has been sentenced to 15 years in prison. The liquidator, Anush Rublal, could not be reached for comment. Biman Balui, SABC News, Polokwane.
Right, moving on to this tragic story now. The family of the late 19-year-old matriculant who was allegedly shot and killed by a Defence Force soldier in 2022 says they're relieved the man will finally see his day in court. The trial of the soldier is expected to finally start in the Northern Cape High Court on Monday. Now, he faces a charge of murder, and for more on this story, we are going to speak to our SABC News reporter, Thabiso Khadebe, and he's live for us in Kimberley this afternoon. Thabiso, good afternoon. Give us the background to this case.
Yes, good afternoon, Gustav. Good afternoon to your viewer at home. Of course, it's a sad story that happened in 2022 when a 19-year-old was shot and killed, allegedly by a South African National Defence Force soldier. But to tell us more about what really happened and how do they feel about the case to start at the High Court on Monday, I've got a family member here, Uncle Thabo Ramabina, to tell us. Sir, thank you for your time. How have you been keeping with this case, especially after it happened, after you buried your son? How have you been keeping up?
Good afternoon to all the viewers. And so this is a very sad story. We are unable to keep up as a family. Like you all know, my sister was hospitalized because each and every time when it's time for the case to go on trial, she gets into a situation whereby she can't cope, she can't deal. As a family, the cousins, the nephews, the nieces, everybody, we are unable to handle this thing because it's very difficult. We break down each and every time. We also faced with this horrific memory that happened right in front of our house. On that fateful day of the 22nd of October 2022.
Just tell us about the case. What really happened, the incident on the 22nd of October? What really happened leading to the death of 19-year-old Amo?
The boys were celebrating their valedictory that Friday. And you know, as matriculants, you will always have that small celebration whereby you are wishing each other good luck and so forth. And the boys came home with a group of friends, and unfortunately, some of his other friends also invited other boys to come and join them in this party, of which they were uninvited by himself. But they then crashed the party, and then there was a bit of a scuffle, as we were told by the neighbors. And then a phone was lost, or let me say the phone fell of one of the boys that crashed the party. But one of the boys picked up the phone, but then it was alleged that Amu is the one that took the phone because he's the one that was chasing them away from his house. But Kanti, the phone was with another boy whom brought back the phone after investigation. Then the boy brought the phone to Amu, and then Amu informed those other boys who said, no, the phone is here with me, you can come fetch it.
So the father came especially for the phone of his son the following day?
On the Sunday, actually. Then the father came on the Sunday to fetch the phone. Actually called Amo when Amo was in the house busy making coffee for the mother and himself. But then Amo stepped outside, obviously, to go and hand over the phone to the father. The next thing, there was a gunshot, and upon my sister getting out of the house, then she just saw a car driving off high speed with the lights off. And then it's when they was confronted with Amu's body outside of the yard.
So what really, the police, they arrested the South African National Defence Force soldier afterwards?
Yes, because, yeah, he was arrested eventually. The suspect was arrested, and then he's been appearing in court. Yeah.
But I'm told that the family is not happy because the case he got bail, and then you did not want him to get bail, but he went to the High Court and get bail.
Yes, obviously, when something like this happens, you wouldn't expect the suspect to be granted bail, because how can he continue with his life normally so, whereas we as a family must see this person living his life normally after that horrific incident that happened.
What do you want to see happening with this case as a family?
Already, as a family, we are broken. We would like to see justice being served. It will never bring back our son. We will still have to live with that, with the memory of having him, because we were looking forward to have him and see him grow into society and become the young man that we saw, growing up. But
how do you, sorry to come in there, how do you explain, how do you tell us about Amogelang, or how was he as a little boy, as a 19-year-old matriculant?
Amo was an introvert, but he will also, he will be able to, he was always able to express himself with his friends and with family, but generally he was an introvert, but he was a young man who enjoyed life, he was a good boy.
So you'll obviously look at this court case with keen interest on what's going to be happening.
Of course, as difficult as it is, it's as if this court case should have taken place somewhere else, and we should just be told that this is the outcome of the case. But obviously we would want the suspect to be given maximum after everything is done. Just get the maximum sentence, because this thing is just unexplainable of what has happened to our son.
You're saying that the mother is not well since that incident in 2022. She's never recovered.
No, she has never recovered. Even if you can go to her workplace, each and every now and then, she will just collapse. And she's not a person of a sick person. She will just collapse, she will just scream, she will shout, she will cry. Because I think it's every time when the memory of Amogelang comes to her, and then she'll have those, incidents. Yeah.
There you have it, Gustav, the uncle of Amogelang, Asegai, who was shot and killed allegedly by a South African National Defence Force in 2022. It was in October, saying that they are seeking justice for this particular case. We've heard that Amu's mother is very sick. Since then, she has never recovered. So we are looking forward for the High Court tomorrow in the Northern Cape, just to hear what's going to be happening regarding this particular case. It's back to you, Gustav.
Taviso, thank you so much for joining us there live from Kimberley this afternoon. Maybe you can just, if you can ask him what the dynamic was like, or is like, the relationship between the two families involved in this tragic incident. Have they ever reached out, tried to apologize, speak to them?
Tell us about the relationship you have with the family of a soldier, the accused himself. Have they come to your place to sort of show remorse, talk to you regarding this particular incident?
No, we don't really know the family because they've never even set foot here. We see people in support of the suspect, but we don't know who they are, because even during the court appearances, we've never spoken to them. Yeah, so we don't know them. They've never come to our house. Yes.
So even during court cases, they never said anything to the family of the deceased?
No, they've never said anything.
So how do you feel about that?
It's difficult to say how we really feel, because I don't know whether we will be able to talk to them ourselves, but at least, you know, as human beings, we believe in that as human beings, whenever one has done wrong, you must be able to show that you are sorry for whatever that has happened, and even there's nothing that you can do about the situation, because what has happened, but just be remorseful to show that because you wouldn't want that to happen to yourself or to your child. So just show that that sorriness. Yeah.
There you have it, Gustav. Thabo Ramabina, who's the uncle of Amogelang, saying that they have never met with the family of the accused. But hopefully, during these upcoming court dates, or rather the trial, they will manage to speak and apologize to the family, because as you can see, the uncle is still very hurt. Even the mother is still has not recovered. When we were speaking with her earlier on, when we arrived here at his household, she was a bit sketchy to give us an opportunity to talk to her, because saying that she's still very, very angry. She's still very sad with what happened.
Tabiso, thank you so much. Joining us there live from Kimberley this afternoon, our SABC News reporter in that case, starting in the High Court in Kimberley tomorrow. This is The Week Ahead on the SABC News channel, and we will see you right after this. Headlines this hour. SABC News is among the big winners at SANEF's Standard Bank Sikuvile Journalism Awards in Johannesburg. Some residents of tornado-hit areas in Otongati, north of Durban, are losing hope that their homes will ever be rebuilt. And the pre-trial hearing of the defunct VBS Mutual Bank matter will start tomorrow at the Pretoria High Court. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. You are watching The Week Ahead. We are live on the SABC News channel from our studio in Johannesburg. And as always, we invite you to take part in our conversations. Give us a call on our studio number here. It's 011 714 0680, 0681 or 0682. I'm Gustav Freyling. Good afternoon, and thank you so much for joining us. The health and vibrancy of the media has a direct correlation with the health of democracy. That's according to Standard Bank CEO Lungisa Fuzile, who was speaking during the Sikuvile Journalism Awards in Melrose Arch, north of Johannesburg, last night. Esteemed journalists and photographers in print and broadcast journalism were honoured.
The important thing for us to remember is that the work that we do is not just for us. It's for this country. It's for this democracy. And I think that's why we meet here under this theme of celebrating 30 years of media freedom. Yes, as a country, we're celebrating 30 years of democracy, but with that, as the country celebrates that 30 years, as an industry, we're equally celebrating 30 years of media freedom.
It is important to remember that journalism is more than just a profession. It is a powerful force that shapes our future. Through the lens of a camera, the stroke of a pen, and the click of a keyboard, you have the ability to influence public opinion, drive social change, and reinforce accountability. As journalists, you have the unique responsibility to tell the South African story in a compelling and authentic manner. Our nation is rich with diverse cultures, histories, and experiences that deserve to be shared with the rest of the world.
Some residents of tornado-hit areas in Otongati, north of Durban, are losing hope that their homes will ever be rebuilt. 7 people were killed and at least 1,200 families were displaced after a tornado struck the area on the 3rd of June this year. Volunteers from various organizations joined a cleanup in the area on Saturday as part of their Mandela Day activities. But their visit highlighted the desperate plight of many residents and for whom life is not expected to return to normal anytime soon.
Newtown is one of the areas which was in the tornado's path. It still resembles a war zone. Houses here were flattened, others had roofs ripped off and windows shattered. Kaelihle Sipahlanga lost everything. His 4-roomed house was completely destroyed. He and his 2 young children are sharing a shack with family of his, while his wife has been staying in a nearby hall, one of designated temporary shelters. Sipahlanga, who is employed as a road plant operator by the municipality, says he has no means to rebuild his house.
I have lost hope that my house will be rebuilt. It's been a long time. It was going to be better if there was something that was started. I lost everything. Even now my kids are still traumatized. When there is wind, they become scared.
Some residents have been luckier and suffered less damage. Repairs have been done with the help of NGOs, churches, and humanitarian organizations who donated building material.
We are still faced with challenges as we have families that did not receive roofs and they are still staying in halls. Even now we are helped by non-governmental organizations, which we thank them for assisting us, because if it was not for them, we're not sure what would have happened here.
The humanitarian clean-up effort was aimed at bringing hope to the devastated community.
Coming here, we're not only aiming to make only an impact of cleaning the place that we are here. As Shincheonji Volunteers is a branch of Shincheonji Church of Jesus, which is from Korea. So what we also do as a church as well, we know that it is very important also for the spirits to be taken care of. But as much as we do that, we want to go out and meet the communities and even spend time with them and do this kind of work or services that we are doing today.
The Otongati area was declared a national disaster, with 2 other provinces which were ravaged by storms. Mlondi Khatebe, SABC News, Otongati.
Economists say it is imperative that the government of national unity focuses on rapid economic growth to enable job creation. In his opening of Parliament address in Cape Town on Thursday, President Cyril Ramaphosa emphasized job creation in different sectors of the economy. Ramaphosa says the GNU will place inclusive economic growth at the center of its work and at the top of the national agenda.
President Cyril Ramaphosa says it has been determined that growth must be inclusive and transformational. He says to address the country's unemployment crisis, government needs to fix struggling municipalities. Ramaphosa says this is because growth happens at a local level where people live and work. Visiting Professor Yanni Rousseau says the government of national unity needs to put more emphasis on economic growth.
We need higher economic growth because higher economic growth leads to job creation. So the single most important priority at this point in time for South Africa is to get higher economic growth so that we can create jobs, so that we can eradicate unemployment in this country. So a focus on more rapid economic growth for me is the most important element. Whether we've had promises about that or whether we will see action, only time will tell.
The Federation of Unions of South Africa, FEDUSA, is urging government to ensure that these promises translate into tangible actions addressing the dire unemployment crisis and job insecurity in the country. Ramaphosa says there will be job creation opportunities across different sectors in the country in the next decade.
Our country is undergoing a renewable energy revolution that is expected to be the most significant driver of growth and job creation in the next decade and beyond. We also have a unique opportunity to position our country as a major player in the digital economy and create jobs in digital services. We will invest in digital identity and payments, expand access to affordable broadband, and increase training for young people in digital skills. As we pursue these new areas of growth, we will continue with the far-reaching reforms.
Business Unity South Africa says the GNU must practice what it preaches on paper.
President also highlighted the importance of addressing the challenges at the local government level. This is where people experience government. We know that in many local municipalities, services are not being delivered because infrastructure is collapsing, as well as many other challenges. Making this one of the actions that the government will focus on aligns with the priorities that we had outlined and our expectations of the Government of National Unity. From a business point of view, we are happy with these priorities, and we now expect the government to get down to work and make these not just priority on paper, but a lived reality of all South Africans.
On the other hand, the Black Business Council is calling on accountability for wrongdoing.
The accountability should at all times come from the top. So the president should be able to hold the ministers to account. The ministers should be able to hold the DGs to account. The DGs should also hold people who report to them to account, and so on and so on. So the mere fact that there's a government of national unity on its own, it cannot necessarily bring the accountability. The accountability is an action by individuals. And if people decide not to take actions against those who are not performing and non-performers, and performance manage them, nothing much is going to change.
South Africa's unemployment rate recorded 32.9% in the first quarter, an increase from 32.1% in the fourth quarter of 2023. Nothando Makutulela, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Welcome back. Now, tomorrow the Senzo Meyiwa case returns to court, and joining me in studio to give us an update on what to expect is SABC News reporter Sipho Kekana. Sipho, good afternoon, welcome, and thank you so much for being here. So for our viewers who might not be that familiar or not focusing, not giving that much attention, just recap the case for us. What happened to Senzo Meyiwa?
So before the court went into recess, it was all about the Vodacom forensic supervisor from Vodacom, actually just all about untangling the intricate web of those calls among the accused. That was the focus before the court went into recess. It was all about painting a picture of those connections. Well, on the one hand, for the state, it was to prove that indeed the five accused know each other and had been communicating over a period of time before, well ahead of the Senzo Meyiwa murder on the 26th of October, as well as the time around that murder, and specifically on that fateful day of the 26th of October. It was all about that. We had her like detailing all the calls. In fact, at some stage, we then even had the judge coming in to say, this information is just too much. Can it just be summarized? You can imagine the amount of data. It was voluminous. She had to just summarize that. At some stage, she even told the court that there were, like, for instance, with accused number 3, she had recorded over 5,000 activities from accused number 3's cell phone. So that kind of evidence then had to be summarized, and it was then presented in court. She dealt with the calls that were made among the accused. She dealt with the calls that were made by the individual accused. We've seen how accused number 2, for instance, it was said in court that when he was still in the holding cells, he had his cell phone with him and was able to make calls to his girlfriend, and he was also communicating with the other accused at the time that he was still in the holding cells as just a mere suspect at the time. And you recall that it was contrary to the evidence that he had given in court, which was that when he was arrested on the 19th of June that year, 2020, his cell phone was confiscated. Now, this evidence that now came through via this call record indicate that that evidence could have not been true because according to the cell phone records, he had been in contact with the other accused at the time that he was still just a suspect in the holding cell. So all that evidence came through before we went into recess. It was all about painting that picture and showing that even on the day there was communication among the accused, and more perhaps interestingly between accused number 2 and number 5, and also their locations. On the other side, the state was also further trying to locate them within the Vosloorus vicinity on the day that Senzo Meyiwa was shot and killed.
Okay, so that's the past. Let's take a look at the future now. What new evidence can we expect to be presented in court tomorrow morning?
So tomorrow morning, we are expecting that this Vodacom specialist, Pinky Vitilingam, will be back on the stage, on the stand, as the state tries to wrap up her evidence. And at that point, when that is done, we are expecting that the defense will then take that opportunity to cross-examine her. And so we do not know at this stage how long that is going to take. I'm talking about the cross-examination of this Vodacom employee. It could take a day, it could take 2 days, it could take weeks. But in the event that it finishes earlier than that, we are expecting that now the focus will then shift from those calls that were made by the accused and their locations and stuff like that. We are expecting that the focus will then shift to the ballistics. You recall that last year, it's almost a year since the ballistic expert, that is Christian Mangena, testified in court in August last year, detailing ballistically what could have happened, also telling the court that they had discovered that the gun that was discovered in accused number 3's room at some stage was the same gun that was used to kill Senzo Meyiwa. Now, he never got the opportunity to be cross-examined because their defense at the time asked for time to consult their own ballistic expert. It's been almost a year now, and we are expecting that once this Vodacom employees' evidence is done and the cross-examination is done, we are expecting that Mangena will be back on the stand to be cross-examined by the defense, as the state is now moving to be closing their case.
How will the prosecution's case be strengthened or weakened by this new evidence?
Well, the evidence by the evidence by the Vodacom employee is very crucial in terms of locating the accused in and around Vosloorus, especially on the day that Senzo Meyiwa was shot and killed. You recall that some of the accused have argued that they were not even in Joburg on that particular day. And according to these records, we can now perhaps see that perhaps that evidence is not reliable. This is a very important piece of evidence because you cannot dispute it. At the point that you do agree that this is a number that belongs to you, but then it can be used to then locate you at a particular point in time. Some of the towers that those cell phones were pinched to were the towers that were in and around Vosloorus. Some of them, ranging between 2.2 kilometers to 6.1 kilometers from the crime scene. So you could then see that there was movement of these particular cell phones that were being used apparently by some of these accused in and around Vosloorus on the day that Senzo Meyiwa was shot and killed. And that is going to be very, very crucial in terms of strengthening the case by the state, that these were the men that perpetrated this particular incident.
So they can pinpoint thanks to the technology. That's the prosecution, then the defense. What will their strategy be?
Well, it is not clear what the strategy of the defense is going to be. At the moment, you recall they should have already cross-examined Christian Mangena on his evidence, and it is perhaps a little bit telling that evidence, which was almost the final nail in the coffin for the defense's case, in a sense that it was very detailed in terms of which gun was used and who could have possibly shot. And you recall that Mangena also painted a picture of exactly what could have happened exactly in that kitchen at Kelikumalu's home, and in as far as the direction that the shooter was standing, the direction that Senzo Meyiwa was facing on that particular day. So he really reconstructed that scene, and it was very, very detailed. That evidence, as it stands right now, it remains unchallenged, and we have seen now the defense going to lengths to get an expert, a ballistic expert on their own, to ensure that they are adequately prepared to cross-examine Mangena on that particular evidence. So we are expecting that after Mangena, there may be another ballistic expert to be called by the state, and after that, perhaps then the lead investigator in this case, which will then be Brigadier Bongani Gininda, to take the stand. And after that, we are expecting now the state will then be wrapping up their case, and we will be moving to the defense case, and we will then get to understand what their strategy is at the time.
So how do you think the outcome of tomorrow's proceedings will then impact the rest of the trial, basically?
Well, this is a very crucial evidence, as pointed out, in terms of, one, it has, the state is going to use that evidence to prove that, firstly, the accused know each other and communicated well ahead of time. The accused know each other and communicated on the day that Senzo Meyiwa was shot and killed. And they will point out their exact locations on that specific day. And you would recall also that there is one of the witnesses that was called by the state is a police officer by the name of Constable Zungu. He spoke about how he, on that very same night, he was at a hostel with the 5 accused, and how around 7 and 9 in the evening, these 5 accused seem to have disappeared and came back carrying guns and looking to be in quite a state. Now, all of this evidence is going to be used to build the state's case in terms of corroborating some of the evidence that has already been laid in court, and also including the confession statements that have now been admitted in court as evidence by accused number 1 and number 2. You recall that in number 2's confession statement, he does say, does reveal a number of things as to who could have been the organizer, who called him to recruit him in terms of being part of this particular job, and that would then be supported by some of the evidence from these calls that were made, and the fact that all their cell phones seem to have been in and around Vosloorus on that particular day. That would corroborate also Zongo's evidence that he had been with all of them on that particular night. We have seen, for instance, the movement of accused number 3 cell phone in and around Vosloorus on that day, and at some point in the evening, early evening around 5, that cell phone is then seen around Ben Rose or George Cock, that area, and around 7 p.m. there is no activity at all of that particular cell phone. And this is around the time that, according to some of the details contained in accused number 2's confession statement, this is around the time that he says they then left the Vosloorus hostel and proceeded to the crime scene where this murder then took place.
So here we are sitting and talking about the details of this case. How has the public's interest in this case impacted or influenced the way that we cover court proceedings in general?
Well, I think there's been a lot of public interest in this matter, and I would surely believe that many newsrooms out there factored that into how they decided on which stories to cover and stuff like that. And you see how it is then being carried out live on social media, on YouTube, and also on some of sometimes on TV. So the public has been very, very much interested. Perhaps that interest seemed to be waning a little bit, and it is because of how this case now seems to be protracted, because a lot of people had hoped that by now they would have had the end of this case. But there are too many delays and interruptions. We have seen, especially for instance, with the current witness that is being given Vitilingam's testimony. We have seen numerous times where she was not in court because she was not feeling well. The court had to take some time to give her some time to then summarize that evidence. That took time as well. There was time when there was no court. Proceedings had to be postponed because accused number 1 was not feeling well. In fact, at some stage he was then asked to even produce a doctor's letter to prove that he was not feeling well. So we have seen all these delays playing out, and also including the evidence of Christian Mangena, who's only going to be cross-examined now, almost a year later. So all these delays seem to have also affected the public's interest. But I do believe that with the kind of evidence that Mangena led, this coming week, we are going to see that public interest coming up again, and people are really paying more attention to what is happening in court.
Will this case and its outcome influence the South African Football Society at large?
Well, there's been a lot of interest also from those sectors, because a lot of people feel that justice should be served. Justice should happen here. A lot of people, especially the Orlando Pirates fans, have been calling for justice. We have seen them, some of them, a number of times coming out to support the state in this case. So I do believe that a lot of them are waiting with bated breath to understand how this case is going to actually end up, and they will be hoping that there is finally some sort of conviction at the end, and that is the interest from the football side. A lot of fans would want to see justice being done.
Sipho, thank you so much for joining us here today. You are really on top of all the details, and good luck with covering the case from tomorrow. That was our SABC News reporter, Sipho Kekana. This is The Week Ahead, and we'll be back right after this. Welcome back. Now, held every 2 years, the International AIDS Conference is one of the largest gatherings in global health. It's also an opportunity for the world to come together to turn the latest evidence into action and accelerate the fight to end HIV. At AIDS 2024, which is being held in Munich in Germany, this coming week from 22 to 26 July, organizations and individuals from across the world will have the opportunity to look back at the tremendous progress made in the fight against AIDS and strategize ways to end the epidemic as a public health threat. The theme of AIDS 2024 is Put People First. Now, our SABC News international editor Sophie Mokoena joins us now to talk about this and other international news headlines. Sophie, good afternoon and welcome. What is expected this year at AIDS 2024 in terms of galvanizing the scientific, the policy and the activist communities?
As you know that the SDGs, one of the SDG, indicates that the world would like to see a situation where in 2030 you are able to ensure that AIDS it's not a health threat anymore. But when you look at progress made, you'll see that it is not possible for the globe or the world or countries to meet that target because of challenges of funding. You know that there was a pandemic, the COVID-19, where resources were channeled fighting the COVID-19, and therefore some countries are now lagging behind, and therefore here at the conference, they will try to galvanize countries to ensure that all countries are back on track in terms of committing resources to fight HIV and also the AIDS. And therefore, we know that countries will send representatives from government. You will have scientists, you will have activists, you will have people who are affected and those who are infected with HIV. And therefore, they will share their experiences in terms of how they have been able to deal with this situation. And therefore, from South Africa, the delegation will be led by the Deputy Minister of Health, Dr. Joe Phaahla. The delegation is leaving today to Germany to participate in this important gathering.
Now, South Africa has its own history with an HIV/AIDS treatment policy. Our country is key to the global fight against the disease because of the prevalence rates here. How far are we in terms of implementing these global health sector strategies? Are we also lagging behind?
I spoke to the director of UNAIDS. That interview will be available tomorrow. Because we are waiting to see the report that's going to be released in relation to how the situation is like currently globally. But I've heard that in terms of South Africa has been doing well, even though we now have a challenge where you see many young people getting infected, and therefore that's where the country has to focus its energy and also channel its resources at to ensure that we continue to educate the young people, the young population in particular, on measures that can be taken to combat the challenge of HIV and AIDS. And the other important issue is that I think we'll hear in terms of technology and advancement of research, new technologies and perhaps the vaccines that can assist in this regard. And therefore, I think that report that will be released tomorrow in the afternoon will share more information. And as I pointed out, I did speak to the director of UNAIDS, who also gave me more information in relation to progress made. And therefore, the other important issue is the issue of mother-to-child transmission. There's a concern there that you still have children who are being born with the virus, and it's surprising because many countries now have mechanism and they do have treatment that can assist that the newborns are not infected. And therefore, the issue here is education and campaigns to conscientize the population, because during COVID-19, these kinds of programs took a backseat, and some people were not even taking treatment, and also the education around HIV and AIDS was lagging because people were focusing on the pandemic, that is the COVID pandemic.
Right, moving now to our bilateral relations with the USA. Our new Minister of Trade, Industry and Competition, Park Stow, is on his way now to Washington for the AGOA Forum happening there this coming week. And he also met with the American ambassador to Pretoria earlier. What could we expect from this? Will he go on a so-called charm offensive?
This is a very important meeting where the ministers from the African continent will be in Washington for this important meeting. You know, last year, South Africa hosted this meeting where many ministers and stakeholders came to South Africa to discuss the renewal of AGOA. Now, the proposal from African countries is that the renewal must take into consideration the request that it must be a period of 10 years. Now, you know that the current president of the United States of America, Joe Biden, is in agreement that one country such as South Africa must come back and be part of AGOA. And secondly, he does agree to a 10-year period. But this has to be put before the Congress in the United States of America. And therefore, it is only the Congress, because it is a legislation. It's not a decision by the sitting head of state in that country or ministers to renew this agreement. It has to get approval from the Congress. But the challenge is that already we know that some congressmen and women, the Republicans and also the Democrats, are saying that particularly South Africa, it must be excluded because South Africa is developed. And secondly, the argument that they don't agree with South Africa's stance in relation to the Ukraine conflict, that war between Russia and Ukraine. And now the latest being the Middle East, after South Africa went to the International Court of Justice. And therefore, we'll see what will come out. But also on the margins of this AGOA meeting, Minister of Trade, Industry and Competition, Park Stow, the new minister, will engage with his counterpart there in the United States of America, strengthening the bilateral relations between the two countries in relation to trade and investment. And he will also meet other ministers. As you know, that he is new in this portfolio, like the Minister of Foreign Affairs, who was at the AU this weekend, where he took time to engage with other ministers so that he can familiarize himself with other ministers from other countries. We expect the Minister of Trade and Industry and Competition, Park Stow, to do that. And it is a high-powered delegation. It will include business, it will include labor and government officials, and therefore the other people will be supporting the position of South Africa. I know that in relation to issues related to health and medicine, you will have Dr. Stavrov, who will be there to put forward what they have been doing as Aspen in terms of addressing the issue of vaccines, and engage the United States of America to agree to assist developing countries, because when they develop these vaccines, sometimes these big countries or developed countries tend not to share information and share the expertise, including the doses, with other poorer countries.
Now, staying in the United States, and what a busy news week it's been in their local politics. We showed some of the pictures there, a lot of developments with regard to the upcoming November elections. What is the latest there?
We know that currently there are members of the Democrats who are pushing very hard for the current President Joe Biden, who had gotten a nod during the primaries to be the candidate for the Democrats, even though this still has to be put before the convention, which is next month. that he must step aside based on the challenges that everyone witnessed during his campaign. And as we speak, he had to abandon his campaign last week because he had the COVID-19, and therefore he was isolating himself, and therefore he couldn't continue with campaigning. And particularly that terrible performance during the debate with Donald Trump. And now there's a push that the Vice President Kamala Harris must be the candidate. But when you look at the politics of the United States of America, when you look at issues of gender, race, color, creed, it is not going to be very easy for Kamala Harris. And on the other hand, you have Donald Trump, who has been given a nod by the Republican convention during the week, but also I'm told that Donald Trump is worried that maybe the Democrats are likely going to change the candidate, and it might be Kamala Harris. He was optimistic that it will be a walkover when it is Joe Biden. And I'm told that they have to re-strategize. And therefore, we can see lots of changes this week in terms of the campaign by both candidates ahead of the important convention for the Democrats.
So it's been said that Trump has managed to unite Republicans there at the convention in Milwaukee this week, just as the Democrats are now divided over Biden. Would shedding Biden strengthen the so-called blue wall against the GOP? And I suppose it all depends on who that candidate then is.
Yes, you are correct. Donald Trump, that attempt assassination, it did galvanize the Republicans and some people who were undecided to rally behind Donald Trump. And we saw even people who were opposing Donald Trump. I mean, his vice president, his running mate, Vance, is one person who was very, very critical of Donald Trump, but later months he was supporting Donald Trump. And therefore you can see that in relation to the Republicans, there's no crisis internally. And then when you look at the Democrats, there's a crisis because there are people who are saying that the current person who is going to be their candidate, that is Joe Biden, must step aside. And people are looking at former leaders such as Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, to come out clear in terms of what must happen. And we hear rumors that behind the scenes, these powerful leaders, some of them are trying to convince Joe Biden to step aside. But at this moment, Joe Biden has made announcement that he is soldiering on, and he feels that he is the only person who can defeat Donald Trump, and he feels strong that he is going to win. And therefore, we don't know, but we will be monitoring the situation in terms of what's likely going to happen starting from Monday, whether he will also come back, because he has announced that he is going to resume campaigning very soon.
Sophie, thank you so much for your insight. That was Sophie Mokoena, our SABC News international editor. This is The Week Ahead, and we'll be back right after this. Welcome back. Now, this week the focus will be on the global showpiece that is the Paris Olympics. The Olympic Games represent the celebration of the human spirit and are arguably the most inclusive sporting events, which explains the global interest in the event with a footprint stretching to the billions. To talk about this, we have our SABC News senior reporter, Thando Mkhodisi, with us in studio. Thank you so much for being here on this Sunday afternoon. Do we know how big Team South Africa is as the country is now making its 9th appearance at the Olympics?
We're taking a team of about 140 odd, almost 150 athletes to Paris. It's a bit shaved down from the Tokyo Olympics, which was sitting at about 170. But yeah, it's a reasonably big team, well represented all around the different sports. So yeah, it should be interesting.
Mm-hmm. So who are the notable names to look out for, and what are their prospects this year?
It's a tricky one. Obviously, in the swimming pool, we look at people like Tatiana to sit and expect things from them. For me, I think what will be interesting will be Chad Leclerc, because a lot of people have said he's not on the pace. He's slowed down over the years, but I think a motivated Chad Leclerc is always dangerous because he's an emotional being, and despite his talent maybe waning a bit, I think the extra motivation and the fact that he's been to the occasions like an Olympic Games is always a plus factor. He's got the experience behind him. He knows what it takes to win, and he's also lost important medals in those games. So I think it should be interesting. Our 4x100 and 4x400 relay teams, that's another area where I think we could medal. I think we're actually going to compete for the higher medals in that one as well, purely because of the talent and also the times at which the guys have run. And I think all the guys are peaking at the right moment. We've seen a guy like Akane Simbini, who's also a master, who's also been to a couple of Olympics, peaking at the right time. So it's things like that that are encouraging, and we certainly think we are going to be celebrating something at the end of the Olympic Games.
So South Africa is one of the powerhouses on the African continent, but on which sporting codes do we need to focus?
Again, an event like the Olympics is so vast. You never know who could come through on the day and actually get you a medal. Again, it's about being ready for the moment and being ready to seize the moment, living in the present. Athletics, we could maybe get a couple of medals there, but I think a lot of our bets will be hinging on the swimmers. I think if you look at the program that Rocco has been running at University of Pretoria, that's where our premium swimmers are basically based. All those guys are very confident going into this one. I remember talking to Tatiana about a month ago, and she was saying, forget what happened at the World Champs. We're not looking to peak at the World Champs. No one is looking to get medals at the World Champs. Our guys are swimming in the peak form. They're really hitting all the right marks. And I think I'm very confident. Speaking to Peter Kutsia as well during the week, he looks like he's in the right frame of mind. So again, I think in the swimming pool is where a lot of our medals will be coming from.
So let me put it like this. Which countries are standing in our way to get to a medal?
A lot of countries are standing in our way. But also, I think, even in those select events, for example, the one interesting part for me is Botswana and the 4x400 men's team in athletics. I don't know what Botswana's been doing right, but over the years, they've been building up that athletics program very nicely, and they look very competent. Just like a couple of years ago, we saw Jamaica coming in with the sprinters. So I think that there's another thing for the African continent. We can sit and celebrate and say Botswana in the 400 and 800. Those are events that we can look out for. But obviously, your big hitters, your America, your China, they bring in the volumes of athletes, and normally those athletes are literally at the top end of the scale. But still, I think for us, we just need to look at individual events, and I think we should be okay. We again, your Tatianas, your Wade, even a Wade van Niekerk might not go for gold, but still he can cause an upset purely because he's got the experience. I think at the most important thing at games like this is being able to perform when the pressure is really on, when you need to control your nerves and actually be at your best.
Let's talk about Chad Leclerc. You mentioned him. Apparently he's going to participate in some races, but not all of them. What is the rationale there?
It's because of age. He can't compete in the 100 and 200 purely because he won't be able to be quick enough in one of them. There's one where he's going to be compromised. So you pick your strongest race, which I think for me is 100 breaststroke. But we'll see. I think, again, Chad is very motivated. He's got a point to prove. A lot of people have said he's not quick enough. And based on the times, yeah, you could maybe argue that. But a motivated top athlete is always dangerous.
We've seen athletes being dissatisfied in the past. What about this year in terms of the general organization, accommodation, all of those things?
Our team started arriving last week, Thursday, at the Olympic Village. I haven't heard any complaints about the quality of the facilities. The only dissatisfaction has been off the field. For example, Wade van Niekerk replacing Luxolo Adams as in the 200 meters. That is, well, it's almost done now because no matter what is decided, they can't replace Wade van Niekerk. He's the name that's been officially put down for the Olympics. But I suppose Luxolo's team will argue the principle of which the way he was basically excluded. But other than that, I think in terms of preparations, they've been okay. There was a bit of worry with the sevens team if they were going to qualify or not. They left it very late. They did qualify, so again, that's another team whereby they have not had the best of form going into the tournament, but on their day, they can beat the best.
And that's starting earlier this week already.
That's starting earlier. They start a day earlier before the opening ceremony. But again, for me, it's about delivering on the day. The guys who have been on that stage normally cope with nerves a lot better. So I think we'll see how the sevens team goes. They've struggled in the last year or so. There's been a lot of changes. There have been reasons for their struggles, purely because on a support level. But still, I think on their day they've got the talent and the class to come back with something if they play at the best.
So we've had a caller just now asking for your opinion. Maybe you don't want to give your opinion about this, but maybe you can explain the controversy to us. Israel participating in the Olympic Games.
That's a tricky one. And again, it's one that the Olympic governing body has been really trying to juggle and make sure that it gives everyone a fair chance to compete at the Olympic Games. There are human rights issues, and sport normally is normally not supposed to be political in its nature. So it's a tricky one for me to sit and comment and say Israel should or shouldn't, or Palestine athletes should or shouldn't. It's a political issue, and the politicians must take care of that.
Young and upcoming athletes going onto the world stage now. Who should we be looking at?
So the one interesting thing about the South African team going into this Olympics, they said this is not the Olympics where they look into peak. They look at 2028 in Los Angeles. So again, if you looked at the junior champs, there was a couple of athletes that really showed a lot of promise. But again, Olympics is a 4-year journey, and people need to perform in that 4-year period. We've got a couple of good youngsters who can compete on the world stage all around. Again, if we get all our programs up and running, also, we need to factor in the COVID factor. COVID actually set us back in terms of supporting our premium athletes. There's sort of like a fund where our athletes are supported financially by SASCOC. So that was impacted by COVID, and sponsors had to be talked to again, and that was realigned. Going into Los Angeles, all of that will be different. Everything would have been aligned. SASCOC has made it very clear that our focus is Los Angeles. That's where we need to be judged on. And we'll see. I think we'll be competitive in Los Angeles. We'll do a lot better in these Olympics than Tokyo, where we only came back with 3 medals. I'm expecting anything between 10 to 12 medals at this one. Doesn't matter which color, as long as we bring back we declare something at the airport. That's the important thing.
Talk to me about Luvo Manyonga and his regrets. What is left for him?
For me, it's actually a sad story, because Luvo, at his best, is almost unbeatable. He's a world-class athlete at his best, but unfortunately, society and society's problems have gotten the better of him, and that has resulted in him getting that ban for the drug issue ban. But still, Luvo Manyonga, everyone would like to see him competing. Everyone would like to see him back on the track, because, again, he is world-class. Luvo Manyonga is on the same level as Wade van Niekerk was before he got injured. When he's fit, when everything is aligned, Luvo is really a world-class athlete that can compete for a gold medal. But unfortunately, again, we live in a society whereby it's not perfect, and those issues tend to come back and bite us. But again, he says he's going to come back. His ban ends in December. He says he's going to come back and compete. He's looking to medal at the World Champs. We'll see. I really hope and wish. I'd like to see him back on the 30s track and performing to his best.
Thando, thank you so much for being here with us in the studio. We're looking forward to the games starting later this week. That was our SABC News senior reporter, Thando Mkholi. And that is the week ahead right here. That is where we come to the end of the show. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday afternoon. The news continues at the top of the hour here on the SABC News channel. From myself and the rest of the team, take care.